I stalked you both and saw that you both have like 3 and 4 kids and have had exits and have started wearable labs at Stanford and have done so.
1 in 6 people are going to need fertility treatment. That stat might even get, might be 1 in 5 going forward, because we're knowing that more and more people are delaying having
Right
kids.
now.
72% of Gen Z women have some level of fertility anxiety. So it's very different from, my generation.
For the first time in my life, just had a friend mention, I'm freezing my eggs. I'm like, you're 32. And she's like, yeah, but they're really high quality eggs right now.
That is where we stepped in and said, can we build the first true affordable fertility insurance product around this, so that if you need fertility treatment down the road,
we're trying to provide women with the ability to really mitigate their risk down the road.
I think affordability is one of the reasons why people don't go into that.
We've also gotten really good at contraception. And so actually the declining birth rate is also because there's a lot less teen pregnancies now.
Welcome to the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by GrowthExpertz. You're in store for a chat about funding, marketing, startups, and all things growth.
All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome back to the Funded Now What podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lee Miller, also known as Andrew Startups. And today I'm really excited because I get to serve you with double the representation of badass female founders than normal. Thank you so much to Dr. Christy Lane and Laura McDonald for joining me here. The president and CEO and co-founders of Flora Fertility, who just raised $5 million to basically help you with one of the most expensive uninsured things going on in your life. So thank you, ladies, for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So glad to be here.
I'm glad for both of you to be here. We're going to try this 2-guest method here, but I don't know who wants to give me a deeper story. I mean, you pick on like what the company does specifically. I mean, I always just give like a little intro and allow the founders to really go deeper on what the company is and the mission. So whoever wants to start with that.
You can start, Laura.
I can start. I mean, the problem we're tackling is, I'll call it a fertility crisis. 1 in 6 people are going to need fertility treatment. That stat might even get, might be 1 in 5 going forward, because we're knowing that more and more people are delaying having kids. Most women by age 30 haven't even gotten married yet. And over 50% of women are having a first child in their 30s. And so this is increasing fertility risk. And it has become the 3rd largest expense that young people are facing.
Yeah.
So we look at, college education, down payment on a home, and then it's become fertility in the near future. And for the vast majority, there is no insurance around it. Maybe there's some sort of state coverage, very spotted, very intermittent. And for some people, they have a little bit through group plan at work, but it's, again, very limited. So 60 to 80% of people are funding this from out of pocket, and they're using debt. So if the average cost of treatment is around $50,000, well, if you're using debt to pay for that, it's actually even costing you way more than that.
Of course.
And so that is where we stepped in and said, can we build the first true affordable fertility insurance product around this, so that if you need fertility treatment down the road, you have the dollars to pay for it. You're buying it, you're future thinking, you're buying it now, and it costs you as little as $15 a month to cover that future risk. And we are the first globally to offer this kind of product and have reinsurance backing for it. We can go into that, but that's a really big deal.
Yeah, that's amazing. I did not know that it's up there with the first house and things like that. And I guess it really does make sense. Like I actually, for the first time in my life, just had a friend mention, I'm freezing my eggs. I'm like, you're 32. And she's like, yeah, but they're really high quality eggs right now. So I hadn't even thought of that. I guess I should have by this age probably, but so that's amazing. How soon after, a couple ignorant questions, like just totally blue ocean for me, don't know anything about this. How soon after getting insurance can someone get like capital deployed for something like this? Like what age do people start thinking about this kind of stuff? Or do you want people to start thinking about insuring for this?
I can take on that one. So what we're seeing in terms of tailwinds is that 72 of Gen Z women have some level of fertility anxiety. So it's very different from, my generation, Laura and my generation. I did go through infertility treatment myself years ago. My oldest is 12, and nobody was talking about this, let alone there being any community or financial products for this. And so fast forward to today, people are thinking about it and they're being proactive in terms of what we're offering. We're looking at women between 20 and 34 who aren't actively undergoing treatment today
Mhm.
for infertility. And once they go through our underwriting and they buy a policy, we do have a 1-year wait period before they can access coverage, but they can use that coverage up to age 45. And so we're
Wow.
really we're trying to be proactive. We're trying to provide women with the ability to really mitigate their risk down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a friend just read a tweet to me the other day that about like statistical stuff about how low birth rates are. And the quote was something like, how bad do you have to abuse a mammal to get it to not want to reproduce anymore? And I think generationally, people are not super excited. And so that's one less stressor that help. I mean, one bigger piece of pushing people to keep the human race going. So I think that's really important because I think affordability is one of the reasons why people don't go into that. And so they're
Well,
pushing
and
it
it's
down the, go ahead.
there one of the things, having two female co-founders on here, get the perspective of there is some generational change around people not necessarily wanting to have babies because it's expensive. A lot of people because of just the way that, the world is today. All of that being said, a huge driver in it is actually the evolution of the economic and work environment for women.
Hmm.
So 30, 50 years ago, women were, staying in the home and they were having babies younger because that was what was the cultural norms. Now you're seeing women staying in school for a long time, focusing on career, focusing on doing all the things that they want to do before having a baby. And so we're ending up now with more women over 30 than under 30 having their first
Yes.
child. So there's a lot of cultural change too around, frankly, women prioritizing career and work and their own self-development over having babies earlier. And that's what's also leading to the lower birth rate.
Or flowers, just to give you both some more flowers. Then there's some badass women that do both because I stalked you both and saw that you both have like 3 and 4 kids and have had exits and have started wearable labs at Stanford and have done so. I mean, like, I know that's not the cultural norm because I just don't even know how that is all possible, but just wanted to bow down for you
Thank
to
you.
you both and say
Thank
that that
you.
is fucking amazing. My mom was an entrepreneur and my dad also, and my dad was like, "Hey, you don't have to do this anymore. Focus on the kids." And I saw how difficult just being a mom is to 3 kids, but then also building companies and doing that. I just like I'm not worthy. I don't know how you do that. So sorry, Laura, you were going to say something.
No, no, no. Well, two things. One, we love talking about our kids. And I will say, I think my kids made me better, faster, stronger. So all of those, when you think about like, oh, I can't have kids if I want to do something else, I would say you can probably. Like, life becomes different. But I would love to dive into that. But the one thing I was going to say about, I think, what you think you want in your 20s or 30s, like life never is quite as planned. And so we're seeing, when we talk about the declining birth rate, though, one of the big things is, and this is what's really interesting, and Christy talked about, the changing work environment and so forth, and women, spending more time in their careers. That's all very true. But we've also gotten really good at contraception. And so actually the declining birth rate is also because there's a lot less teen pregnancies now, which is
Mm,
like just a good thing. We've gotten really good at not getting pregnant, but when you
yeah.
decide, okay, now, I'm in my 30s and actually I'm rethinking things, I might actually want to have kids. So then we're not that good at going, oh, wait, there might be some things I need to address. There might be some problems. And that's what, Flora's looking to change. And so I think women still want
Mm,
kids. They want them later, right? And they're not going to
yeah.
be having I have 4 kids, and I remember somebody saying to me, like, 4 kids is acceptable, but if you go for 5, that's getting kind of weird in today's day and age.
I have one friend that has
And
5
I'm
kids,
not
and
normal.
I think it's a financial decision at that point. He's extremely wealthy. That family is extremely wealthy, and we're like, oh, okay, you know. But that's regardless of gender. People are just later bloomers because, like you said, there's padding on the walls now in
Yeah.
many ways, and so anyway, it's really awesome though because we talked about right before we started recording, this company is B2B2C, so it's a benefits. You're offering this as a benefit to companies. So let's talk about that because that is a very unique business to be in because you also need to do marketing for the end customer, the employee, and for the company. And so that makes marketing, which is the point of what we're going to talk about, a little bit difficult because you don't know what to do, catch 22, and you don't know who's going to become the wedge or the lever inside of the company. Do we convince one 25-year-old employee to tell the whole org, or do we convince a CEO to offer this as a benefit? So I would love to go right into what has worked for you and what hasn't in that area.
Hi, Laura.
I'll start, and we are really omni-channel. Our who do we serve? We serve the end customer above all else. And so we actually launched when we were conceptualizing Flora, and our core market that we originally envisioned was direct to consumer, because we felt there was this huge coverage gap that if you worked for a Fortune 500 company, most of us don't, you might have some access to group benefits. So let's say about 5 years ago, you had these big fertility group players come into the market. They created demand for fertility coverage. Everybody wanted it now, but you had to work for a really big company to access it. And so we were going, well, that's not fair, right? There's a lot of people that don't work for those companies, or they don't want to their entire careers. And when we
Right.
look at the next generation, they're going to have 12 plus jobs over there. They're going to be moving from corporate to gig to contract and everything in between. And they need something that moves with them. So Flora was
Yeah.
originally built, it's individually owned and underwritten. So
I
it's
saw that.
always in the name of the individual or the employee. And so who we serve above all else is that end customer. So we do have a direct to consumer because ultimately it's a product, but it's also a brand, and we need to be known across all channels. So we have a big marketing push coming on the D2C side. But then we realized that there was also a huge gap among employers where
Yes.
either they're too small to be able to offer the group coverage, or the group coverage has just gotten way too expensive for them to offer
Hmm.
enough of it. And that's where Flora comes in as an additional layer of protection. So we are both D2C and B2B, and also have
Interesting.
channel partners that kind of make us B2B2C.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's see. What do I want to talk about first there? I think in my experience, which is quite vast, it is easier to scale the B2B2C side than the D2C side. Like it is easier. I make the joke, it's easier to get a person. I mean, it's easier to get a company to spend 15 grand than it is a person to spend $15. And, but actually going to the beginning of what you said, like thinking it's the third biggest, realizing it's the third biggest thing, I think that's an eye opener for a lot of people. So it might be easier to do a really big DTC push than normal because like this is the one major thing that you've overlooked in your life probably up till now. So, but I would always recommend early stage company, so seed stage company, exhaust the B2B efforts first and then use the revenue from that to reinvest because you need such a larger war chest usually to go after the infinite amount of consumers there are individually as opposed to the finite number of companies that have the employee size and the revenue and the interest in even supplying benefits, which is a lot. It's coming back definitely, but it's not every company. I actually think companies that are remote would be the first to invest in this because there's no in-office benefits that they can offer. They need some cool thing to offer to employees. And this is such a beyond cool factor. It's such an important part of life, a potentially really risky thing and not that costly for the company to offer to really make them stand out as we care about you more than anyone else. That's all they really want to show to get the best talent. So do you feel like that big DTC push is coming after really focusing on the B2B for a while, or do you think there's still a lot of juice to squeeze there?
I mean, strategically, we decided to run them in parallel. And the reason being, this is a net new product, right? So
Yeah.
it's very rare that you're actually having an entirely net new insurance product. And so there's not a lot of experience data to show us what the best path would be. And from the market research that we did, we landed on that it's likely actually an equal opportunity in D2C and in B2B. And thankfully, our amazing investors agreed with us. They
Mhm.
said, we trust that you've done the work to figure out where to start. And frankly, from our experience to date, I think that they're showing up equally, right? We've just launched ads last week in D2C and we're seeing a huge uptick there, but we also just launched some custom broker portals last week and we're seeing huge
Cool.
uptake there. And so from a financial perspective for us, we're able to invest in parallel, and honestly it's a test and learn, and we're learning as we go from both. But right now they're showing
Absolutely.
up equally, I would say.
What kind?
The
You go.
D2C side influences the B2B because if people start an internal discussion in their organization or think that I don't know if that's being mentioned, or if it's on landing page, like I click on an ad from D2C and then there's a header menu tab that says get your employer to pay for this or for employers, that's still going to help feed that into me because if I was at a company at all. I mean, I run my own company. It's very small, but if I was able to convince my employer, I would. And I think that that'll start that discussion and help with that a lot. So it makes sense. Also, the B2B stuff doesn't necessarily cost money. It's a sales led thing. It's an outreach. It's just getting meetings and the sales cycle can be quite long. And in the meantime, DTC can be lit on fire by one major PR article and obviously some really high ROAS producing ads. So that makes sense.
Mhm.
Sorry, Laura, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say we're a very bold, consumer friendly brand, and we were part of a fantastic program called Broker Tech Ventures, where you're meeting with some of the top brokerages, you know, B2B partners out there. And what we found was that they were really excited to there's a lot of behind the scenes type of companies, B2B, SaaS, they were really excited to one, they loved that it was a net new insurance product. They loved that it was emotionally relevant. And they loved that we were just bold and out there. And, our product and our branding just really resonated, not only from the B2B side, but consumers loved it. And so somebody asked us at that event, at this one day program we were at, are you a product or a brand? And we're ultimately a brand. And so we need to own that brand
Mm,
across all channels. And when we talk about, I know this is about funding as well. I think there's more of an interest from investors where they shied away from D2C for a period of time. You almost had to be a B2B SaaS company. That's become a little bit saturated now. Everybody's
mhm,
competing for that market. So
mhm.
trying to be, a dominant D2C player in a net new space, it really helped us on the fundraising side.
Makes sense. Oh, absolutely, because those are all just shots on goal. Those are all just bets, and it only takes one of them to wildly work for an investor to get paid back. And so I think the brand is another absolute value piece there. I mean, at the end of the day, that you just taught me something massive in the first minute of the call. I did not know the top 3 riskiest investments. I guess I would have thought about a home, but the rest I didn't think about. And so that being that first mover, inventing that new product, that means that there's a lot of education that needs to be spent on. And the DTC focus can really be that. It's not just running ads, it's putting out education that this thing happens, these problems exist, and this is a solution that only costs $15 a month to protect you from that. And so I think, ads are cool. It's definitely, the fastest way to get things out there, especially with such a powerful brand, as you mentioned. I mean, if you're investing in making really amazing creatives. I can think of, interviewing customers that have had an incredible success, of someone who ended up not having to pay $30,000 and go into debt that would have cost 100,000 by the time it was paid off and was able to build their family and her baby is on her and she's like, "Thank you, Flora." I mean, that creative is so powerful and is going to speak to women that see it more than anything else because it pulls on heartstrings. It's not an aggressive used car sales tactic type thing like swipe up for the free training bullshit. It's really like we want to protect you. This problem exists, and we think you're gonna want this later on. So be ready for it now. But the PR side, which we got connected through your PR team. So I already know that you're investing in this, but I think on the PR side, it's really like educating people around this on both the D2C and the B2B side, doing PR for human resources, and so that managers and companies really know that this is a benefit is a big thing about. And we'll touch on the D2C side, and if you have questions there, we can definitely make that the bulk. But I'm personally just so excited about this company for companies because I think there's a resurgence in caring and wanting to care for employees. There was a window of a couple years where they were scaling teams down, AI is trying to replace people. Am I going to keep my job? And now it's like, how do companies show that they're in 2027 and that they really care about their employees? And this is a future way to do that, and for honestly not a lot of money for the company. And so partnering with SHRM is a great way to get access to that industry really, really quickly. But you both should just be speaking about this problem. So I think you can earn that opportunity just as much as you can pay for it. And oftentimes companies that have the war chest you have already think, let's just pay for this. But here I am, your free marketer on this call, telling you that you have a organic way to get in front of these companies and a story that's valuable enough. Like, go back to that first minute. What are the three major things that could happen to your employees that could decimate their savings in the course of the time they work for you? The other two things, there's tons of products out there to protect them for. But this third thing that's going to happen to almost every single person in the team, there's nothing out there. And so it blew me away at the beginning of the call. And so I guess turning it into a question, are you focusing on that story that around the problem that you're solving? Or is it just, hey, we've raised some money, this company exists, now you can get this protection?
Do you mean from a PR perspective or from a marketing?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, like
perspective?
PR is marketing. I think it's maybe top 3 most important marketing strategy of 2026. So number 1 is GEO, generative engine optimization. So I want to talk to you both about that. I think that's a huge thing for, people are talking to AI. Generative engine optimization is getting your business and your content into AI as recommendations to end users that use it. From the DTC side, if I'm having a problem or struggle in my life, most people are talking to AI about it before their doctor or before anything else. And so, you know, I'm worried about my fertility. I'm thinking long term. What do I do? And then you want to create the content that AI goes, oh, here's some recommendations. By the way, you can protect yourself with Flora. So that's a content initiative, but you also need to have a lot of reputable sources linking to your business, and that's what PR provides. And so, similar to companies caring about their employees, it was going down for a while, and now with the resurgence of link building as an important part of validating a new business, PR has become infinitely more valuable than it's ever been. And so I always look as a consultant to how can I make my company just valuable as a story? And you are oozing with value without me having to really massage the story very much, because it's a huge problem. Like, it's the most costly thing that might happen to someone with no protection. So I think that there's a ton of opportunity there for you as a company to really put a lot of effort into PR. And, one article can drive 30, 40,000 visits, quality visits to a site if it's nationwide. And so focusing on that, this is a cool thing to do, like in the tech space, but unfortunately, well, maybe I hope that there's good people listen to this. There's a lot of like senior investors and tech founders, but hopefully they have families and they want to insure themselves. But I don't know. But more targeted is, lifestyle and things like that. I think
Yeah.
those that will really help the audience. Like, beyond everything, you just want to educate people that this problem might happen to them and that they need to safeguard themselves, because that amount of debt at that age can change the course of your entire life. So, and, we want to help the human race continue. So putting those guardrails around it makes people feel more comfortable to go and produce a family. And I think that's a great thing overall. So
Yeah.
PR,
Well,
important.
we have an amazing PR firm, Hannah Cranston Media. They've been with us from we at the earliest stage. we wanted to invest in PR throughout that process. One, because it was, again, it's that net new product, really leaning into our background. So when we talk about, like, Christy and I have very different backgrounds. Mine's a little bit more on the financial side, Christy on
Yeah.
the health side. And so when we look at doing, yeah, we'll talk about our funding absolutely in PR and what the product is, and we'll cater it to both employers and direct to consumer, but also looking at our different areas of expertise. That's where I might lean in more on, like, fertility as an asset class. But Christy always, being called on to comment on what's happening in the world of digital health, reproductive health. Every time the Trump administration makes changes to fertility access, they need to talk to experts in this space. And so, agree, PR is a great way to get our name out there, and we've been fortunate to be in Forbes and Fortune and Wall Street Journal and so many other publications who, just keep coming back because we've become credible experts in the space.
And I
Love
think
that.
our like in terms of our strategy, we did it's kind of done at one of these. Like early on, it was just visibility around like truly category creation. This is a brand new product, never existed. Just let's get it out there that it exists. Then there was a period of time as we were leading up into our seed fundraising where it was more so pointed at investors, like generating credibility, generating knowledge of the market size, that kind of thing. Now I would say we're cycling back to, given our D2C marketing push, really getting the brand out there, getting the brand voice out there. But always throughout, we do as much as we can in terms of, you had mentioned an association or a conference, speaking at every conference that we're able to. And interestingly, across sectors. So we're speaking at insurtech conferences, fintech conferences, but also like I'm speaking at healthcare research conferences and then HR conferences. So fertility. So there really is, it is
Comprehensive.
cross-functional. I don't know what you want to call it, but there's
Yeah.
a lot of different,
Okay.
leader voice spaces that we're
And
in.
I will say, as founders, if we're talking to founders right now or those who want to get funded, like, you should be investing in PR and hiring a
Of course.
reputable firm. Back when I had my former business, like 15, we're in the digital media women in wealth space. We could do a lot of that ourselves 15 or so years ago. And honestly, at the time, a lot of it was even like print publications and stuff. It was a little bit easier to
Mhm.
manage on your own. I don't think that's the case anymore. You need to have those relationships. And if you work with a reputable PR firm, they're going to do so much, they're going to become true partners. And so we made that on to invest in PR and also to invest in showing at conferences. I think too often founders are protecting their resources. They don't want to pay for travel. They don't want to pay to be at friends. We would do our best to get speaking engagements that they were being offered to us, but you still need to make the commitment to show up in person, meet people, build the partnerships, have the visibility out there. And again, so that was another commitment we made early on. Ultimately, I think it really helped us when it came time to fundraise.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what you are doing. Let's use the rest of the time for me to try and help you. What do you feel like you're not doing yet that you need to be doing that I can shed some light on? These are the things, this is the way to execute that, or these are the hacks for doing that. What do you feel is the piece of the growth or marketing pie that has not been eaten yet? Anybody?
Laura oversees marketing. I oversee product. So I
can't
have
really
some
help with product that much, I don't think. So
I'll let her feed us these questions.
yeah. Perfect. Well, the elevator pitch to the company is very different than it is to the end user. I think it starts with this thing is a problem, but people might not like to hear this. I don't think companies care as much about the problem. They care about looking good to the employee. And so, understanding the psychology of that when you're dealing with HR people, I mean, I don't want to misspeak, but it's mostly like, how can I deploy the company's budget in the best way to retain the best talent, to get the best talent, and to look the best, like we're the most caring company, even if they might not be. And so from a pitch perspective, I think that's what you are. You are the most affordable way for that company to provide a unique and powerful benefit to their employees that nobody else has yet. And I think it's an important enough thing that it's going to be a major differentiator. Like, I've seen other companies say we provide fertility benefits as a banner thing on their job ads and stuff. But the insurance, fertility insurance, is a totally different thing. And so I think that is something, if you give them a PR opportunity from an HR perspective, that's a really big benefit for them. And so I would sell it in that way. From a strategy perspective, the first thing I always do when we're doing B2B like this is what I call ground cover, and that's outreach. So we automate outreach to these HR leaders. That's done through LinkedIn and through email. Now, email has become less and less powerful over the years that AI has now enabled everyone to send massive amounts of email, but we still do it because the larger the organization or the more senior the person is, usually, the less they're using LinkedIn and the more they're using email. Now, they still have firewalls and email blockers and spam things, but it's a numbers game. And even if only one out of a series of 8 emails gets through, and I'm going to talk about how to get that email through, I think. But even if only one email gets through, they're still like, oh, well, open enrollment is in November, but we might have budget later. I'm going to save this. Like, you are empowering the HR leader to look awesome to their boss. That's what you're giving them. Hey, I got this really new cool thing, this company, I saw this article. And even though it's just it fell in their lap, that you want to keep hitting them up until it's the right timing at their organization to where they can bring it up to the other decision makers. And then everyone can say, yeah, that's cool. We want to be the innovator in taking care of our employees in the most risky, costly potential thing. So many companies try to tell me, no, we shouldn't do LinkedIn or email outreach, but it has no negative benefit. You're only trying to provide value. And the message is very short. It's not a try to explain every single thing in the first message that you reach out to a company. Any employee on the team can manage this, by the way. It's a couple $50 tools and some AI. I mean, I try not to use AI in writing the messaging. It's actually the thing that gets delivered the most, the thing that gets through spam filters the most, is just a one-liner like, hey, Heather, or whatever, are you guys looking for any new benefits to offer your employees? A one-liner like that's always going to get delivered. It's not going to go through, it's going to go past any spam filter because it's just a one-liner. And then there's a signature maybe, and they can click on the URL and learn more about the company from that. But then if they get back, yeah, we are actually interested in new benefits for the company, because it depends on the success of the org. How much are we growing the team? If we have a big hiring initiative, then they do want to add and layer on things. Or if they're like a smaller family, 200 employee or less, I don't know what your target size is. If they're a smaller organization, then they just want to keep providing more and more stuff to retain employees, long-term lifers at the company. So either one of those, through these outreach initiatives, we learn a lot more about our targeting and our ICP. Like, there's a signal always that we don't know about inside of the company. For instance, could be growth rate. Like, if they're, like I mentioned, if they're hiring a bunch, or, I don't know, maybe it's female founders or female leaders in the company. If there's more than 25% of the senior leadership is female, then they are more caring as an organization in general. I don't know, I made that up, but it's probably true. But so the first thing I always do is that outreach. This makes sure that we have a steady pace of conversations. We have new logos coming in. There's all kinds of methods to shorten the sales cycle there, but you want to get those logos in. You want to get those conversations going for the next round that you have to raise. Hey, we have conversations with PayPal and Oracle and these big, whatever big logos, even if they are long sales cycles, that helps add a lot to the valuation of the company. So that's the first thing. The PR specifically in the HR space is probably the second piece I would really focus on. So we talked about PR from the general media, and that's really important. The fundraising stuff is probably the least important PR. It's good for link building. It's good for people like me discovering you and be like, oh shit, that's cool. I want to get them on the podcast. But I want you to focus on PR for why this is such an important benefit that companies need to offer. And then, outside of the B2B space, PR around the scariness of not being insured for this massively, potentially life-altering thing that might become very quickly the biggest, most important thing in your life. And so I didn't even think about it. And like I said, I'm just a late bloomer. I should have. But so on the B2B side, PR in the content that is consumed by those HR decision makers. So SHRM is the first thing, but there's a lot of very niche HR media sites And I think you have a very valuable story to where, yes, you can throw money at it, but I think you can legitimately earn the opportunity as a story, not just about the company, but around like, you know, it's very easy to also create an article and ship it to these orgs, like the top 10 things that companies can invest in for their employees in 2026 or 2027. Like I said, open enrollment starts in November. Do you know what open enrollment is? I think that's like the healthcare benefits time. So like September is probably the perfect time to start that outreach and start that PR initiative and really go very hard on getting the media out there. So there's outreach, there's PR. And then the last thing is what I said, the GEO. So not to badmouth HR people in any way, but people in long-term, full-time employment at companies are 9-to-5 workers. They are not working 18 hours a day like founders. And so AI has become a powerful tool in vendor research for these employees to look like they've done a massive amount of research. I mean, not trying to offend anyone here. It's just what I see across enterprise deals, everything. And so getting your business into AI so that it can show up at the right time when they're like, yeah, boss, I'll look for the best benefits. So that's a content initiative for the company. So you create a bunch, like more than 100 blog articles that are top 10, best 11, best 13, how to take care of your employees in 2027, best benefit opportunities, how to, not necessarily for the individual user, that too, but I think that searching will be less because you invented a product. If it was somebody else was a first mover and they did a bunch of education, then users would on the end goal go, HR people will search. I have an initiative from my CEO to find 2 or 3 new things that we can offer employees. So those 3 things I think would be the stack that I would focus on. Obviously, there's LinkedIn marketing is probably the 4th thing. I'll finish with this. LinkedIn marketing is one. Both of you, as completely different thought leaders, but also very valuable, have content initiatives for posting on LinkedIn. So it's wildly important because you're building an audience. So the outreach, oftentimes, if you're going to C-level or director level or VP level HR people, they'll accept the automated LinkedIn outreach, but they won't answer the conversation. But then as you're posting organically, daily, weekly, and you don't need to be doing this. This is something you tell the team, content, you outsource it. There's a million companies that do this for companies now. The goal is obviously to grow you. You want 20, 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, but I also want you to be the most loudest voice in this problem that you're solving in both of your respective areas, which I think you're literally like the perfect co-founders as well. One from finance and one from health tech. It's like, duh, it's amazing. So you're talking about different stuff. You're not necessarily being like salesy with your content. It's more educational and interesting. And then randomly, when it's the right time in that person's org, they're like, oh, I follow someone who talks a lot about that on LinkedIn. I see that time and time again. So that's the first part of LinkedIn marketing, is like the content and posting. The second thing that I would do for you guys is, because you have a pretty targeted, I'm sure there's many layers to the ICP. You can run very targeted LinkedIn ads. So whether it's a case study or a carousel of images or whatever it is, small audience LinkedIn ads can be very effective for branding. It doesn't really convert massively, but then the outreach works better. And then it's all working the same way as going to conferences for much less money. They see the brand in multiple places. And then again, when there's a company-wide or C-level discussion about what else can we do to really take better care of our employees, or what can we do to, get the best talent and offer more benefits, that's when I saw something, I can't remember where I saw it, comes in, and then it comes inbound. And so there's other pieces to LinkedIn, but those 2 round out, I think, the 4-channel thing that I would focus on. Does that create some value for you on this call?
It does. Thank you. Yeah.
Sweet.
No, I that. Okay.
That has been another episode of the Funded Now What podcast with your host, Andrew Lee Miller, brought to you by GrowthExpertz. If you liked this episode, please subscribe. And if you really liked it, please share with other founders and entrepreneurs. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next episode.